I'm sitting in front of two iPads. First generation, second generation. And the differences are certainly noticeable. I'm going to do a walkthrough here and comparing the two pieces of hardware. I've already done some speed tests. I've already showed off a few of the features of the iPad second generation or iPad 2 versus iPad 1, but not really a direct comparison of hardware, at least what we see on the surface between the two particular iPads at this point in time. And I'm sure, oh, God, I was planning on selling this iPad, but maybe I should hold on to it so when the new version of the iPad comes out, then I can compare the 3 gen, all together. Well, that's something we'd have to decide after that. Either way, one of the biggest differences between the two iPads is the case, and the second gen iPad, or iPad 2, is certainly shorter, at least by way of height when laid on its back, shorter, squatter, almost like I would say about half as much as the original iPad, to the point where it, sitting next to the first gen iPad, it makes the first iPad look kind of clunky in comparison, largely because of the fact that if I hold this up directly, you could hardly see the aluminum on the edges in direct comparison to the aluminum on the outside of the bezel of the first generation iPad. So it's just sleek. It certainly weighs roughly the same. I know they say that it is lighter, and I'm sure it is, but I don't know if I really can feel the difference between the first generation iPad and the second generation iPad in terms of weight in my hand, which again isn't to say that it's not lighter. It is actually lighter, and certainly in packing the same amount of battery life, as well as a faster processor and graphics processor on top of that. Advantage iPad 2 on that. Another advantage of the iPad 2 hardware over the first gen iPad hardware is the speaker. And I'm going to see if I can better demonstrate this. Let me turn her off. Even though the first gen speaker is louder than the second gen speaker, it's not producing as rich of a sound as a second gen speaker, which is to say, and I'll better demonstrate this here. So first I'm going to try to demonstrate the volume. Let's unlock the second gen iPad, the new one. Okay, I opened it there. Now we're going to unlock the first gen iPad. Volume was at full blast for each one, and at least my ear could definitely hear the difference between the second gen and the first gen iPad. So it's a little softer, but the sound that's produced is much richer in general. Music or any kind of sound application. The physical speaker difference is also pretty noticeable here. Doing my best. Okay, there we go. On the bottom, second gen. On the top, first gen. Pretty noticeable. There's a grill versus just a few ports for the speaker output. And while I have this in this position, you'll also notice the dock connector, or I guess where you would plug in your cable. The iPad first generation has a flat surface versus the second generation on the bottom, which has a curved surface, much like the iPod Touch. And I could plug in the cable just fine. It wasn't, or it hasn't been an issue to this point, but if I had a preference, I would choose, I guess, a flatter surface to plug a cable into. But that being said, I do like the design ethos that Apple decided to go with the iPad 2. Everything kind of curved. It does feel nicer in the hand. As I said, it makes the iPad first generation just seem clunky in comparison. That's, again, an aesthetic, which, Apple is all about. Another difference, the microphone on the iPad second generation is right about here, which is roughly where the FaceTime camera is up front, or I guess front-facing. And this is, of course, the 3G version. That's the antenna area. On the Wi-Fi only version, it's still in the same position. Let's see at the top, there's a power button. It's about the same, or at least roughly the same position in both generations. The microphone moved. Got the speaker at the dock. SIM card slot is in, it's in a different position. It's towards the top on the second generation versus towards the middle bottom on the first generation. And again, these are the 3G units. The bezel seems to be roughly the same thickness in the perimeter around the visible screen. There's really no difference between the screens. the second gen iPad or iPad 2 collects just as many fingerprints as the first iPad. Can't wait to get a matte screen protector because I'm just like constantly wipe. So much easier to manage, specifically with a matte screen protector. That's my choice. Some people don't like matte screen protectors. I happen to be a huge fan. Of course, the iPad second generation has 2 cameras. They're okay. The iPad wasn't designed to be a camera. The camera is a feature to have, just like you could have a webcam on a notebook computer. That's not why you buy the notebook computer. It's nice to have the webcam, but that's not the only feature. So for people who are slagging the iPad for that reason, I think it's kind of, I guess, misappropriated. If you're going to slag Apple for one decision or another, that would not be the way to do it at this point in time. Plus, we got to have something for the third generation iPad. You got to look forward to something. So I heard, and this may be a rumor, I don't know, didn't check it out since I already had one, the iPad keyboard dock. I guess Apple's no longer selling this, likely to steer people towards the much more elegant and stylish and more portable wireless keyboard connecting by Bluetooth. I tried the iPad second generation in this particular keyboard dock, and it worked just fine. Seemed to be fine, at least from all appearances. But since it had a kind of a curved edge on the port, I wasn't sure if it was pushing against it in a way that it shouldn't be pushed against. At least the port, the hole on the bottom of the iPad. Everything seemed to be fine, but as soon as I plugged in to sync with the computer, it's the computer that this particular camera is connected to, and it stopped the video, and I had to start recording all over again. Which is fine, because I'm sure I've made a few mistakes. The people who are watching the live video feed have seen me do this like 4 times now, so they know exactly what I'm going to say. Position of the home button seems to be about the same. Size-wise, it's just a slightly, in terms of profile here, if I have them sitting on a desk, yeah, they seem to be roughly the same height. The iPad first generation is a little larger, just a little, skosh, not by much. Which isn't to say that if you have a first generation iPad screen, case, you could possibly accommodate the second generation iPad, but not if it's truly form-fitting. You're going to have a bit of a challenge since the second generation iPad is slightly smaller and with the the rounded edges. See here, what else? Okay, got that. Weight. I think it pretty much covered just about everything, at least at this point in time. The differences, at least the physical differences between the iPad first generation and second generation. I think most people, if they were to pick up these 2 devices and look between them, they would more likely pick the second generation iPad. As I said, the curved edges makes it a bit easier to hold on to rather than it's not a sharper, well, I guess it is a sharper edge. It's not a sharp edge, but it just seems clunky in comparison. I think I'd rather have something that's just a bit smoother as I'm holding on to it, reading or typing or doing whatever. Okay, I think I got everything there. The difference between the 2. I could cover that. I covered that. Okay, I think I'm done with this particular video comparison. Maybe you are interested in another difference, in the physical differences between the 2 that you haven't looked up. Certainly, I'd be interested if I missed something, a big thing that people are looking for in terms of comparing the 2 devices. Let me know. My email address is chris@perillo.com. At Chris Perillo on Twitter, facebook.com/Chris Perillo, lockergnome.com and lockergnome.net for the greater part of our techie community. And then, of course, we also have a chat room, as I referenced to just about a minute or 2 ago. It's part of a live video feed, and we're geeking out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can join us at live.perillo.com. We'll see you later.